I'm at a place where it's more, I won't say that I'm not always sort of updating my way of thinking, but the big model of my life is pretty stable now. So I would say that how well the things that I have cobbled together work in high pressure situations.
You mean like your values, your principles, your frameworks for life?
How to deal with your emotions.
Yes.
That's probably the most important one. Like when things are really going haywire, like how do you center yourself? And I learned very early in my business career that the thing that, because I looked back, there was a bunch of us at Awareness Technologies that were given the same spiel. Don't think of yourself as an employee, think of yourself as a partner. If you act like a partner and achieve certain results, we'll actually make you a partner. And nobody did it. And so I was just like, why am I the only one that's doing this? And I realized that my ability to self-soothe was a huge part of that. So other people would get upset, they would derail, they would take their eye off what they wanted to achieve because they were frustrated or whatever. And I could just bring myself back to center. Now those are pretty small tests. And obviously as things have gone on, you start dealing with big numbers. You start to realize, is this real? Like, can I actually center myself when, say hundreds of millions of dollars are at stake? And then it's like, okay, this still works. And that was very encouraging, because when you get a test that's sort of way beyond where you've been tested before, you're like, how's this going to work? So that was pretty extraordinary.
How do you soothe under chaos?
It is for
yourself.
So the big thing for me was recognizing that I'm having a biological experience and that I need to understand the brain, like the brain, not just the mind, which is incredibly important, but the brain. What is the brain doing? How does it hijack me? What is neurochemistry? What triggers it? Like, what are all the things that evolution has sort of primed me to do? It's what I call the physics of being human. So if you are a human, sort of regardless of intellect or experience or upbringing, there are a certain number of things that are true. They're as universal is going to get. And look, nothing is perfectly universal, but some things are really close, like an internal dialogue, and an internal dialogue that skews negative, right? Which is where most people start.
Yeah.
You get people like Kanye on one end who just cannot see themselves doing anything but the best ever, the greatest, and all that. And then you get people who actually don't have an internal dialogue. Like there are no words going on in their head, which is crazy, but nonetheless true. But the vast majority of us live in a place where you have an internal dialogue, and that internal dialogue is largely negative. And so once you know, okay, cool, this is a trick of evolution, and my brain, so a guy named David Eagleman gave me this insight. He's a neuroscientist. This is so powerful. Lewis, I hope it hits you the way it hit me. And he goes, think about this. Your brain is enclosed in a dark box. Light never touches your brain, sound never reaches your brain, and everything you experience as being in the world out there beyond you is all happening in your brain. It is a virtual reality that your brain creates for you. And so I was like, my obsession with the Matrix, and I'm like, oh my God, even though I don't think we're actually living in a simulation, your brain is creating a simulation of the real world. And I forget, I had a physicist on the show, and he said, Tom, objective reality is the number of photons reflecting off of any object. That's reality. But you don't perceive it like that. You look at something, it's like, this is gray, that's white, your shirt is sort of green.
Sort of green, yeah.
And like, you just perceive it like that. And so your brain is not making any attempt to represent reality. Your brain is making an attempt to keep you alive and help you navigate the world. And I just thought, oh, that's so interesting. So knowing the heuristics that my brain is using, the rules of thumb, the shorthand, it's not true, but it has this massive influence on my life. So something bad happens and you take it on as negative, it makes you feel badly about yourself. And so I just put in all these rules of like, well, that's not objectively true. So if I'm not worried about objective truth, what should be sort of the North Star? And for me, the North Star became utility, what's useful. And so once I shifted away from trying to like be objectively true about myself, realizing I'm probably not gonna ever nail that, but I can get to something that's very, very useful. And so then I wrote my beliefs down and sort of started thinking about value system. And I will end this rant with one thing, which is recognizing that brain plasticity is real. And so much of who we are, let's say it's roughly, science says it's roughly 50%, this is not me making it up, that 50% is hardwired, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. But 50% is insanely malleable. And I love this quote, so great, that you can't make a racehorse out of a pig, but you can make a really fast pig. And I thought, okay, cool. So maybe I'll never be a racehorse, but I can be a really fast pig. And so whenever I'm feeling badly about myself or something knocks me off center, I just come back to that idea of what's useful. How do you move forward? Like, even if you're not going to be the greatest of all time, does it benefit you to act as if you could become the greatest of all time if you pour yourself into it? And so I don't know that I'll ever end up being the greatest anything, but dude, acting like I can and like really practicing and moving through the world like I can become the greatest has propelled me forward.
Yeah, because acting like you can't won't get you there.
Yeah.
Won't make you good probably or great if you're constantly obsessing over why I'm not good enough or why I'll never become great. So acting like you can at least gives you a much better chance of getting somewhere than nowhere.
100%. It's what I call the only belief that matters. The only belief that matters is that if I put time and energy into getting a new skill, I actually will get better at that thing. And if you then extrapolate that and say, and skills actually have utility, they matter. So knowing how to build a business that doesn't fall, or build a building that doesn't fall down is very, very useful.
Or build a business that doesn't fall apart.
Yeah, that too, right? So those skills actually let you do things. And so that's become sort of my obsession is getting people to understand you don't read a book to check a box, you don't go to school to impress your parents, you do it because the skill that you will acquire lets you do something in the world that other people can't do or you wouldn't be able to do, and that has a material impact on your life.
Yeah, I feel like you and I are very similar in the fact that we talk about skills a lot and acquiring new skills. And I think when you have a down phase or a breakdown phase, that's when you should think about what are the skills I'm lacking that could benefit me so this doesn't happen again. I remember in my early 20s, I had a lot of free time because I was broke on my sister's couch. I just obsessed over skills. And when you learn a skill that is hard, that you don't think you can accomplish, and you actually master it, for me, I feel unstoppable. I feel like I can accomplish anything. I feel like even in a setting where I feel uncomfortable, as long as I know in the back of my head I've got these other skills that maybe they don't know about that I could pull out at any time, they just make me more confident. I don't know if you feel the same way about acquiring skills.
100%.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, and I know you talk about it, so some people in your audience I'm sure have a sense, but I think of you very differently than they think of you. So I don't think of you as on-air talent, though you were obviously very gifted at that, because I've spent so much time with you outside of that, like talking strategy around like, how do you grow a podcast? How do you get good at YouTube? How do you build a business? Like whatever, and seeing how adept you are at those skills, like that's where it gets interesting. So that people understand that all the things you talk about and all the training that you do and stuff, it isn't the part that they see. Like the School of Greatness is sort of the tip of this very large iceberg of skills that you're building. And that to me is the fascination of when you're not focused on the tip, but you're focused on actually building that foundational set of skills, what you can do with your life and what you can make as the tip of the iceberg that other people will recognize becomes really, really interesting.
It's interesting. My skill was never, I'm a good interviewer or a host or anything. I never learned that skill. My skill was, actually my fear was connecting with people. And as a teenager, I learned that in order to become successful in my life, I had to learn how to connect with people and build relationships. So I turned a fear into a superpower of building relationships. Then translating that into, okay, let me interview people was another thing I had to learn, but it was never my gift from birth.
Right.
It was a skill I had to acquire and overcome. What was the greatest fear in the last 5 years that you had to overcome that has now become a skill or a superpower for you?
I think the only thing that I've sort of thought through like that is I feel like Kobe Bryant when he split from Shaq. And it was like he obviously had won a championship with Shaq, but could he win a championship on his own? And so my last company was so successful, but I did it with two partners. And so now to have a new partner in Lisa, it's like, okay, can I also lead this team to a championship? And so that drives me in a way that I find so fun of like, okay, cool. Hey, as a part of that group, smashed it. But can I do it over here?
Yeah.
So that like reinvention, trying things and letting myself feel the weight of like, hey, you gotta prove it, buddy. Like, you had a big success once. Can you do it again?
Wow.
And so doing that under new circumstances, to me, like, I love that shit. Like, I love the excitement of, can I? Will he? Won't he? So that's a lot of fun. But that's something that I think if I thought about the world differently, so I don't value myself for achieving it, so whether I achieve it or not is irrelevant, but showing up every day and sincerely pursuing it is what I value myself for. And I like to feel that sort of weight of like, hey, maybe you won't, maybe you're gonna fail. Maybe like it was only you as a part of this collective. Hey, you did a great job there. Or maybe it was just that moment in time. Yeah. Like you rode a wave, but like over here, can you create something from scratch? Can you repeat it? So yeah, that it's not, I don't live in a space of letting that be a fear. Sure. But it's like, it's a cousin of that feeling. I think it's
stepsister
exactly
or something, yeah. Where do you think all success starts with?
Well, the fast answer is mindset. Going back to the only belief that matters, you said it. It's the way you act is ultimately all that matters, and the way you act follows what you allow yourself to believe. Or maybe a better way to say it is what you choose to believe. So if you choose to believe that your energy and efforts will result in more skill set, then you will actually put energy and effort into getting that, which means you actually will get the skill set. But if you think, well, my talent and intelligence are fixed, so no matter how much I work, I'm never going to get better, right? I can't be a fast pig. And if you don't think that putting time and energy into it will yield anything, then you won't put time and energy into it, and you thusly won't get the skills. So, and if you don't have the skills, then you can't do the things other people can do, and so people just get stuck because they don't have the only belief that matters. So they don't put the time and energy. And so that's like where everything starts is, are you putting the time and energy into getting better, yes or no?
Yeah. And when do you get the most angry? And reactive. Are there things that make you reactive?
Yes, very much so.
Maybe not angry, but like, well, no, this frustrates me. Don't do that.
I think the same, and I think you're right. I'm not somebody who's quick to anger in 99.9% of my life.
Yeah, you might not scream with anger.
But I want to, Louis. that 0.1% really does get for me exactly where you're going, which is when I see somebody accept excuses, make excuses, do less than they can, and it impacts me. So if I'm honest, if it's just impacting them, I don't get angry, right? I feel compassion.
Yeah.
But when it's like, and now you're dragging me down, now you're slowing me down, now you're trying to talk me out of something, now you're telling me I dream too big, now you're hurling stones at me or whatever because of something that you've got on you, and I'm freaking you out because of how I'm moving or what I'm going for or whatever, that actually does make me angry.
So how often does your team make you frustrated if they're not taking responsibility 100% of the time? And
because we have so one thing I learned back at Quest, because we grew so fast and I just wasn't smart enough at the time, you're only as good as what you write down. And you can be small and sort of communicate everything in these interpersonal relationships, but as you get bigger, it goes away.
Yeah, and hope people have it memorized or something. So, interesting. You're only as good as what you write down.
Correct. When you're running a company.
Yeah.
So
in terms of like having a process documented that someone could implement, not just a simple conversation that you hope they memorize.
100%. So coming into impact theory, you have to sign. It's not a pledge, but it's about as close to a pledge as you're going to get, and it's our culture code document. And it says things like, you will take 100% responsibility for your job. You will be expected to look beyond your role. I mean, just like all these things.
I love this.
And one of them is, I only want to play with hardcore motherfuckers. And it says, this is not a safe space. So do not come here expecting people to be kind. Like, look, here's the thing. I also expect you to elevate your team and to lift them up and to celebrate them and want them to win and like cheer them on and never worry about whether it was your idea. The only relationship worth being in, because all relationships are sacrifice, the only relationship worth being in is where you feel like, whoa, like this person really cares about me. And I want people to retire at impact theory. At a time where millennials stay at a company for 18 months, I'm asking them to stay for 40 years.
Wow.
Now, to do that, I've got to give you emotional stability. I've got to give you somewhere where you can build trust, where people are honest with you. But in being honest, people are going to be direct. They're going to say hard things in the spirit of, I want to lift you up. I want to see you get better. Because remember, we believe that you can get better. And if you put your time and energy into improvement, that you actually will improve. And therefore, you get more out of your life. The company gets more out of your involvement. But like, I really had to be hardcore about that because, you'll hear a lot people say, don't hire for skills, hire for culture, or John Wooden, sort of the best explainer of this, the famous basketball coach. I don't look for the best player, I look for the best fit. That really is true, man. When you get somebody who like you can really relate to and you can say hard things and they're receptive and they say hard things and they're coming from a good place, it elevates you.
Yeah.
And it's fun to be around, right? As a social animal, we just love that stuff. So that's huge, but I'm really hardcore on the way in so that once you're in, like we can give you grace. Like imagine if you were on my team and I try never to refer to people as employees. I slip up from time to time, but I really think of them as teammates.
Yeah.
So if you're my teammate and you're like, hey, look, man, I'm really having a hard time. My girlfriend and we're just in a dark place right now, and I'm gonna need a couple weeks just to go sort it out. Don't even explain. I got it. Cool, I got you. Tell me what I need to know to be able to pick up the slack for you. We refer to vacations as being sacred. So the only vacation policy we have is that it's unlimited. So do whatever you want. Get your work done. You need to be a high performer, yada, yada, yada. But like, if you need the time to deal with your girlfriend, the death in the family, whatever, take that time, be an adult. Autonomy is huge for me. I assume it's huge for most people. So, but to do that, you've got to say, this is the criteria we expect you to meet.
You need to be high performing the rest of the time you're here.
And if any of this turns you off,
then it's not the place.
And it says that in the document. Like if you're not prepared to do this, then this is not the place for you.
Wow. So is it literally saying a line, this is not a safe place?
Yes, this is not a safe space.
What does that mean, not a safe space?
It means that I'm going to make absolutely no effort to protect your feelings. I'm going to never, ever, ever sacrifice clarity for kindness. Now, I will be as kind. I want to be kind, dude. I want you to be kind to me. I want to be kind to you. My wife is my partner. I would never want an environment that was tearing her down. So it's like, in the spirit of trying to elevate people. Remember, I'm not a Machiavellian kind of guy. That's gross to me. Yeah. That is such a turnoff. I want to, like you would treat a friend. Dude, if you're in a dark time, you're going to underperform, and I'm down. I'm with it. I will do your work for you to create the space for you to have that moment. Because I know at some time it's going to be my moment. But that only works if I'm not parasitic, you're not parasitic. It's going to be hard enough if you don't have ill intent. Now, if you are lazy, if you have ill intent, if you are trying to milk the system or whatever, then it's never going to work. But if it's just legitimately you're going through a period we will all go through, which is a very hard time for whatever the hundreds of reasons throughout our lives that we will underperform, be in a dark place, whatever. If at that moment, people lift you back up, they brush you off, remind you of who you are and who you can be, and they love you and they're there with you, cool. We all get it.
Yeah.
But to do that, you really have to have a code of behavior on the way in. You just have to. Like, the everyday of it all, what do we expect? And I want to be around hardcore people.
Yeah.
For their own reasons, right? I don't want to have to sweat you. I don't even want to think about you. Like, I want you to go do your thing. I want to do my thing. I want to be able to count on you to crush it. And you can definitely count on me to crush it. And then if I need you, I will ask, and hopefully you will aid me. And if you need me, I'm going to run to your side to help you. But I don't want to micromanage.
Yeah.
So like, I want you to be good at what you do, to be getting better every day for your own reasons. And there is a certain subset of humanity that is like that. If you get them in your company and you set them free, they won't all get in the groove, but 80% is pretty magical.
What's the best hire you ever made?
My wife.
Besides your wife?
There have been a lot, dude. I'm super stoked on my team. How about instead of saying a person, I will give you types of personality
there you go.
That I find intoxicating. Number one, somebody who is so convinced that they're not yet good enough to achieve their dreams, but so believe they can get there and are what I call a relentless problem solver. A relentless problem solver is worth their weight in gold. I don't need them to be highly educated. They will educate themselves over time. Somebody who's not afraid to speak to power, that is a big deal. I have a very strong personality, and unintentionally I shut some personality types down. And a quote that popped into my mind one day when a person who shall remain nameless didn't use these exact words, but basically said, slow down so I can lead. And I was like, yeah, no, that does not
Someone
work.
on your team said that.
Yes. Not at Impact Theory, but
yeah.
at a point in my life,
Sure.
somebody once effectively said, slow down so I can lead. And I remember being incensed that this person would allow themselves to say those words. Like, that's so anathema to who I am. Like, I could see myself saying, I can't keep up with you, you need to lead. And then I would follow and be the greatest follower that I could be. So that notion of like, I want people that make me sweat. I want people that are like, they're trying to be so good for their own reasons that I'm like, yo, like keeping up with this person is intense. That's intoxicating for me.
So the times that most frustrate you, you have a code of ethics when people come in, so hopefully you're not frustrated because they understand their accountability, their actions, their behaviors, everything. But what are the times that frustrate you the most outside of your company?
Ooh, just in my personal life?
Yeah, just in life in general.
Inefficiency is the only thing that winds me up. It's the only thing that I will say I'm irrational about.
You're reactive to. You see something and you're like,
nobody in the outside world would know because that's just ridiculous. I recognize that it's an offshoot of something that's very powerful in my life. My obsession with always doing things as efficiently as possible. But I also recognize that life isn't, like, you can't, on my deathbed, I will never say, wow, I was efficient. Efficiency is useful towards getting to a goal, and so I prize it and I love it and all that. But my wife has tempered me and shown me that sometimes just the connecting, just being with somebody, just sitting and being is joyful.
Is enough.
Yeah, not even just enough. Like, it is precisely what the doctor ordered. And I'm not great at that. If you don't think that putting time and energy into it will yield anything, then you won't put time and energy into it, and you thusly won't get the skills. And if you don't have the skills, then you can't do the things other people can do, and so people just get stuck because they don't have the only belief that matters. That's like where everything starts is, are you putting the time and energy into getting better, yes or no?